Hello, everyone. Hillary Donnell from Exeter TV here. We are learning about the New Hampshire Humanities involvement in the CARES Act grants, and please introduce yourself.
Well, thanks, Hillary. I'm Anthony Poore, and I'm lucky to be the Executive Director of New Hampshire Humanities. Thanks for having me.
Can you give us a little bit of a summary of what you guys have been doing with this CARES Act grant project?
Well, sure, but first, let me ask you a quick question, Hillary. Before the
Yes.
CARES grant work, had you ever heard about New Hampshire Humanities and some of the work that we've been doing in the state for about, 47 years?
I have actually. We sometimes film lectures that you guys bring to the Historical Society or the library. So
Great,
we've actually
great,
seen a
great.
couple of lectures. They've been really interesting.
Well, cool. That's wonderful because that kind of sets the tone for the kind of conversation moving forward. And so, historically here in the state, we've basically played three roles. That's convener. That's all the plug programs, for example, that you suggested. Last year, I think we hosted or supported upwards of 749 programs all around the state. North of the Notch, south of the Notch, Seacoast, Upper Valley, we've got something for you. And then we had our role as funder. Now, traditionally, that's been our role of funding community project grants, right? And those are major and mini grants to support the work there, kind of extending our reach into smaller, more rural communities. And then we're growing into this more of a role of what I call a catalyst for positive systems change. Leveraging our platforms to bring attention to issues of importance to the granted state through the lens of the humanities. Well, our work in the CARES grant has now provided us another opportunity to be of service to the state. And so if you're familiar with the CARES Act, when that money was made available, 56 of my peer organizations, including myself, were tasked with making those resources available at the ground level. And so this is kind of a new role for us. Historically, we provided program-related grants, but this is the first time we provided general operating support grants that were developed as a response to the pandemic and the negative impact on our libraries, historical societies, other cultural organizations, and so on. And so it's a new role for us, but it's a role that we were eager to step into and be of service.
Do you have like a picture of sort of what that looks like for an individual or organization?
In terms of the grant process?
Yeah. Like what's the reality of it's money for programming, money for operating?
So no, when the monies were allocated through the CARES grant, right, these monies were intended for general operating support grants, essentially to help organizations like, for example, Lancaster Historical Society or the Jackson Public Library, as an example, simply be able to keep their lights on. From uses as minimal as, for example, one of a small library who does not have the necessary resources to purchase the prerequisite cleaning supplies to welcome patrons back in, right? As an example of the types of needs that were out there. To, organizations who, for example, can't have their weekly flea markets, which are the revenue creator to support the general operating support for an organization through the remaining of the year. And so these are really about nuts and bolts, simply helping organizations, pay their salaries, keep the lights on, and so they can continue operations during the crisis to the extent possible, but also after this is well past us, because again, this too shall pass.
When we were talking before, it sort of came up that there's a lot of like unique characteristics of New Hampshire that sort of made this process challenging. Is there like anything you want to talk about for that? I know you were talking about contacting people in the upper regions and
Sure.
figuring out resources there.
Yeah, and so if you think about what we've been a part of as an institution, as an organization, there are three core principles that really drive our work, right? And one of the driving ones there is around accessibility, right? We want to ensure that we are accessible to the widest audience as possible in all that we do. And so for us, when we look at our state, we recognize that our state is as different as our former and current economic realities. North Country, north of the Notch, south of the Notch, again, the Seacoast, the Upper Valley, very different regions with very distinct needs. And we want to ensure that those areas who are historically underrepresented, right, and often these things will come down, grant opportunities, that those areas like the Upper Valley and North Country are represented. And from an equity lens, at some level, are overrepresented. So let me give you an example. So we'll think about Coos County. Coos County represents about approximately 2% of the state's population. Well, they received 10% of the CARES grant awards because we wanted to ensure that our small communities like Lancaster, like Jefferson, like Whitefield and others, who historically wouldn't be at benefit from these opportunities, could. And that's where we really were able to identify a real area of need. in these areas that were historically underserved. And when I looked at, for example, the counties, and I can share with you the data, I could be happy to share my screen later. When you looked at the level of support that we provided in those areas, particularly in the 3 northern tier counties, our level of contribution into those counties exceeded the population stats. And so from an equity lens, we were able to compensate for the being underserved in the past to ensure that they had equitable access to the resources that we currently have. So whether it's access, whether it's about operating in an innovative way, that's kind of what we're about right now. And that's what we've tried to do through the CARES Act work.
Could you show us some of these maps and talk us through what you think would be helpful?
I'd be happy to. So let me just share my screen here with you for a moment. Now, this is top secret information. These are some of the slides that we will be sharing in our after action review. So one of the things we've committed, if you go to our current website now, and again, that's nhhumanities.org, so nhhumanities.org, you'll see the CARES Act page to the top. You'll see some initial information. But on July 1, we intend on making a full after action review available that include both quantitative and qualitative results of the work. And I'm eager to share with you some brief results. And so here's an ArcGIS storyboard that we've created in preparation for that review. And so quick summary, on May 1st, we launched this effort. So over a period of 13 days, we received 89 applications for general operating support. And after careful review and consideration, we were able to fund 64 of those applications at a total sum of $400,000. And we were able to positively impact 47 communities. So you may say, well, gosh, there's 64 grants, but 47 communities. Well, there are some communities that benefited because they had a historical society and a library, right? So think about Berlin, an example. We supported both the historical society and the library at ports. And so that's where you see. But again, almost 50 communities we were able to positively impact. Here is a quick map that we developed, and I'll scroll through. You can see we've identified in black circles a number of the regions or towns and villages that received grants from us, general operating support grants. So as you can see, we go as far north as Colebrook, right, to as far south in the state. Of course, it would be, I guess, Ringe would be the furthest thing. So again, I know I scrolled through quickly. So as you can see, we identified each one of the counties. So again, all 10 counties in New Hampshire received support. And as you can see, if you look at the North Country in particular, you can see, and I'll go from point, say, Conway north, all of the major population centers all benefit from support. And I'm proud to say that's not always the case. But as you can see, as I continue to scroll down, you can see where all the individual grants are made.
Yeah,
so
I can see Exeter there. So
yeah, that's right.
Very cool.
You see Dover, Stratford, all those areas in and around you, Kensington, et cetera. And so, I'm also proud to say we supported some major cultural organizations like the Black Heritage Trail and so on, who are really critical to the long-term success of the state. So as I just quickly scroll down, we also broke this down by congressional map. So you can see by CD1 and CD2 where those grants were made. Now, I'm also proud to say when you think about the equitable distribution of resource across congressional districts, 43% of those funds went towards District 1, and then 57% went towards District 2, which is obviously a larger region. That would make sense, but it's nice to see that nice balance there. Continuing to make some additional maps. As you can see, we've been having fun with map making after a while by congressional district, by county, and by award. I'll quickly scroll through there to some other materials down below, and we'll go back. Here, we've also developed an interactive heat map. So you can scroll over any one of these areas in any one of these towns. You can see, for example, Portsmouth, well, gosh, they have a bigger dot. Well, the reality is they received, in terms of multiple grants, which is why you see. So the size of the dot and the color denotes the type of organization and the amount of funding that they received, right? And then last but not least, you'll see we've broken it down by region in terms of distribution, by region, and we've also aggregated by county. So as you can see, for example, Coos County, they received $38,000 approximately in total funding, and that represents 9.63% of the total funding, or 10% basically. Rockingham County, they received $94,000 in total funds, which represents 23.5% of the actual funding. And so what we want to be able to demonstrate not only the comprehensive nature of the work, but also the equitable distribution of resources that we were able to achieve through this work. Again, just to quickly go through the numbers, and I'll stop sharing my screen. This is 13 days, 89 applications, 64 applications fully funded, supporting 47 communities with an equitable distribution across all 10 counties and ensuring an over-distribution in those counties who are historically underrepresented. That's an important element of our work. Again, around our themes around access, innovation, and elevation, which continues to drive our work here at New Hampshire.
Awesome. And these charts and the interactive map will be live on your website on July 1st?
On our website on July 1 as part of our after action review.
Awesome.
The first map that I shared with you is already available on the website. Again, just so folks get it, it's nhhumanities.org.
This may be a bit out of your specific wheelhouse, but do you know if there's anything that our citizens and other people like them who are concerned about cultural organizations can do to support them themselves?
One of the things I wanted to share with you and your listeners today is that the need exists, and it continues to exist well beyond after there's a little bit of money was allocated. So I'm proud of the work that we did, but we have to keep in mind, the average grant size was $6,000, right? And so $6,000 is enough to help keep your lights on for a small to medium-sized nonprofit like myself for maybe a part of a month, if that. So what I just want to stress to your listeners is that from a cultural organization standpoint and the level of uncertainty that we currently are operating in, we don't know when our theaters are going to open again, when our public libraries can open again. If I'm not mistaken, I believe the governor just announced he's going to extend a stay-at-home order potentially into another couple of weeks. So that means, again, our cultural organizations can't open up. They can't open and bring people into the organization. They can't fulfill their mission, and they can't benefit from the admissions, maybe the sales they would have in maybe their gift shop and so on to support their work over the longer term. So what I want to share first is that this need is not ended, and it's going to continue into the foreseeable future. And it's really important to us. It's really up to us as cultural organizations and those who believe that the culture and the arts are a critical part of our institutions, of our state, that we have to get out there and continue to support them in substantive ways. The other area is that I'd like to bring attention to is that there are additional resources in the state. So that while our resources may have expired, there are some additional resources I'd like to bring forward, if I may. So if I'm going to share my screen again, so please indulge me. And you can see our CARES page, website with some brief information and so on. And when you scroll down, you'll see links to additional resources that I want to point your listeners to. Mm-hmm. So we still have the State of New Hampshire Nonprofit Emergency Relief and Recovery Fund. Okay, that is still out there and that still exists. That's being managed by New Hampshire CDFA alongside the New Hampshire Charitable Foundation under the auspices of the governor's office. Those resources are still available for local nonprofits who need additional supports. We're encouraging organizations, again, because there's small amounts of dollars, to double dip, right? The State New Hampshire Main Street Relief Fund is still available. I believe that fund expires today, so it'd be Friday, May 29th, right? But I believe it's still available and it's still out there. We have the Community Crisis Action Fund managed by the Charitable Foundation, and most importantly for our arts and our cultural organization, but really for our arts organizations, the New Hampshire State Council for the Arts just announced their CARES grant applications. So those are made available this week. So what I want to leave, while as I suggested, the need still exists, that there continue to be additional resources in the state that others could benefit from. And that I wanted to make sure that people were aware of for the benefit of this. And then lastly, just to toot our own horn, particularly for those who are interested in doing more project-related work, don't forget, at New Hampshire Humanities, we have our community project grants, both for $1,000 for one-off projects, humanities-based projects that we can extend our support with, and a $10,000 grant for longer-term projects, similar to what we've done historically, say for Portsmouth Playhouse as an example, with their Elephant in the Room series, which is a series of one-act plays and talkbacks focuses on some pressing issues of today.
Is there anything else you'd like to leave us with?
No, I think I've probably talked your ear off, and but I do appreciate the opportunity, Hillary. And if we can, one thing I do want to leave your audience with is two things. Number one, if we can be of service, please never hesitate to call us here at New Hampshire Humanities, and the number is 224-4071. Again, that's 224-4071. I'm here every day. You call me. Number two is, we're here, and so we want to be of service, and we want to be leveraged and utilized. So don't forget that website either. Look for those community project grants. We'll continue to do our work. And if there's areas where people think we should concentrate some resources, I'd love to have them speak up and help us help us keep our ear to the ground where we can continue to be of service.
Oh, yes. Thank you so much for talking with us today. It's It's a very interesting and important project, and I love to hear that these organizations are being supported. So, yeah, we'll see ya. Hillary Donnell, Exeter TV, signing out. It's been great to talk to you.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Thank you.